gotta hate me sometimes. Yeah, I just I got too greedy. I'm trying to do this whole regular season thing and damn points racing, and I'm trying to win the stage because that's at least 1 point that I can leave the weekend with.
The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media.
Hey guys, welcome to Action's Detrimental. I am Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 Yahoo Toyota this weekend. That's what I was saying when I was spinning through the infield.
Yahoo.
Yeah. And Jared, sorry, you do not get an introduction because Jordan said, stop introducing Jared. Everyone knows who he is.
Jordan said that? At least in Michigan they do. At least in Michigan.
How many autographs did you sign?
Quite a few.
I heard that you were popular.
Yeah. I mean, so much so, right? We were flying home and Austin was like, or you said I witnessed Jared in his natural habitat this week. And Austin was like, yeah, he signed tons of autographs.
Yeah.
That's not what you were referring to. But
I know. But weren't we walking somewhere from the garage? I thought I heard someone in a distance say, I want Jared's autograph.
Yeah. On the first day, on Saturday.
That's what I thought I heard.
I was like
kind of as I was passing, and I was like, wait a minute, I just hear that?
Yeah. It was your diecast. I was like, the driver's right here.
That's right.
He's
that's
behind.
right.
You want him? He's like, no. I just want yours.
So this week kind of was Molly's birthday, and we went to Cliffhangers, and Jared showed us his element of climbing rocks. It was quite entertaining. Which pretty impressive stuff.
Which your daughter is also great at. She was there as long as I was.
I tell you, she was climbing some stuff. I think she got extra I think they were about done, and as soon as those kids came, like that were 10 to 14, they all got motivated to start climbing again. So it was fun. I would get about 25 feet up, and then I'd just give a quick peek down, and I was done at that point. So heights, man, there's a lot of things that I've found in my older age that have changed. Like I used to be able to spin my ass off on the teacups. Like it was my job to, get Jordan sick. When we get on that, like I just was like trying to get her nauseous. And now I can't do it. I get nauseous all day. It's so weird. So that, and then heights. Man, I don't handle heights quite as good as I used to.
Would you go skydiving?
For some reason, I feel like yes, because it's so far up in the air that it's not. I can't really see.
What about roller coasters then?
Yeah, I really don't have a issue there because I'm. It's when I'm not held in.
Okay.
Like we were at the top of this castle on vacation, and like there was a wall probably 3.5, 4 foot. But it was enough to where you could lean your whole stomach and chest on it and look down, and it's probably 75 feet. And I just didn't like it. I'm like, no, I'm good on that. So
that's crazy because I feel like with heights, most people's fear of heights is actually a fear of falling. Like they're afraid of heights, but really they're afraid of falling from that height. But if you're not afraid to go skydiving, that doesn't make sense.
Well, I haven't been strapped in a plane yet and thrown off of it. So, I mean, I might have second thoughts, but I feel like it would be something that I would do. I guess I probably should. You can just kind of sign up for that now, right? You got a person on your back and
Like I would go tomorrow and do it. I've been talking about wanting to go.
Seems like one of those things you should do before you die.
Yeah.
Hopefully you just don't die doing it.
Right. Right. Well, we got a couple races from Michigan we can recap. First, we had the Xfinity race. Justin Allgaier won it. I noticed right from the get-go, I thought Justin had the best car. Like, he was making moves when others weren't. I didn't love the super speedway package at Michigan for Xfinity. I know they did it during for the Indianapolis race. I thought that put on a great show. It's just the straightaways are just so long at Indy. It allows you to kind of get those big runs, slingshot runs at the end of the straightaway. it just looked like to me no one really wanted to pull out of line at Michigan in the Xfinity Series. So you had some really good handling cars. Allgaier looked like he had the best handling car, the fastest car. He was able to make moves when others couldn't. So I thought kind of the rightful winner there won that one.
How much of that with him is he's got so much experience and he's racing against kids that they're 20 years old, that he's able to do some things that they're just still trying to learn.
Yeah, certainly the experience gives them a sizable advantage in the Xfinity Series, and Xfinity has had such turnover rate year after year with young guys coming and going and things like that. When Justin knows that, okay, this is where I'm going to be, and he's been with the same team for quite some time, all that just really, really helps him be up to speed probably quicker through the weekend, and then the experience and the racecraft that he's got really pays dividends. So I think he's found a great home in the Xfinity Series, and he's going to, as long as he's in it, he's going to be one of the dominating drivers.
Yeah, stability. I mean, that's something that a guy like Sheldon Creed has not had yet. Another runner-up finish in the Xfinity Series.
And he had his opportunities in Cup, and really even as a fill-in role, I thought he did a good job at Charlotte. Right? I mean, just getting in there and going. So I mean, he certainly, he's never, I don't think, going to be on the top of anyone's list of, okay, we're going to pick up this Xfinity driver to go to the next level. I think sometimes when you do stay in a series a while, you're there, kind of like Matt Crafton's of the world, Ben Rhodes. Like no one ever talks about Ben Rhodes. Like these guys are just going to be there for quite some time. So it's just it's a weird thing about our sport, but it is what it is, and I think that he certainly challenges these young guys when they come in, even when they're in the same equipment as him. Surely he makes, having a person like Justin Allgaier on a team like JR Motorsports that has some different drivers come in and out, like that's a good staple for your team, to kind of foundation for your team to build around. So they got a great thing going there. And I saw Dale's tweet. He was like, we had one win, one somewhere else, a wreck, and last or something like that. He was like, I'm pissed, I'm mad, I'm excited, and he has all these different emotions, which I experienced as a car owner today at Michigan with having the opposite ends of the spectrum. So great win by Justin. Any of the off-track stuff y'all want to touch on?
Let's touch on Austin Dillon and an update on that situation. We were watching in the Richmond race in the bus on Saturday or Sunday, whenever we were delayed, and now there's a bar that runs across the bottom of the race broadcast that says update Austin Dillon's win stands. However, he is no longer playoff eligible. That had to be the first time I've ever seen that. Now, again, we don't have a ton of post-race penalties, but we did back in the day, and I never remember a recap where it was like, disclaimer, what you're seeing is not real. What they're saying about being in the playoffs, it's not real. So that was interesting that they put this, Surgeon General's warning right there on the TV for us to see. But he's going to appeal. I think that he did make comments about, he's going to use Actions Detrimental podcast from back in the day to, be more informed about how they should prepare.
Good luck, it didn't work.
Good luck, because we had a great case, and it didn't work. But, NASCAR has changed some language in the appeals process where, after the Hendrick Louver shenanigans or whatever it might be, right, where the panel says they're guilty, but we're going to just change the penalty. Like NASCAR did not like that one bit, like not even a little bit. So they changed the language, I believe, to say in the sense of that you have the panel has to judge, are they guilty of what we said they are or not? And if they're not, then you can say there is no penalty, but you can't just change it and come up with a new penalty like they did for the Hendrick guys. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm thinking about what are they going to build a case on, I think it would be really, really hard to build a case to say it wasn't intentional. So probably that's not their angle. More than likely, it would be of the angle that it's unprecedented that they've never, a win has counted but not been eligible for the playoffs. You put in your rule book that you have a win and it puts you in the playoffs. I would argue that a little bit because I read some language to you last week that was in the rule book that, when it comes to kind of the fairness of the sport, they can make, unprecedented calls. And, I think that what NASCAR, if I'm thinking about what NASCAR is going to defend, so if, maybe they're just not going to argue. And again, I'm just guessing. Maybe they're not going to argue that he did it intentionally or not intentionally, whatever it might be. They're probably going to say, people have wrecked for the win for quite some time and you've done nothing. And this time you chose to take us out of the playoffs. And that is unprecedented. And what NASCAR probably would say was that we saw an unprecedented move and it caused us to make an unprecedented call. That's what I think that both sides are thinking about. I could be totally wrong, and they might have some sort of evidence or reasoning behind their appeal. We really don't know what they're appealing, right? So they're going to appeal that this win should count. If you gave us the win should count towards the playoffs. I understand that argument, right? Which is why I said just take care. You should have taken care of it at the track. Don't enforce the rough driving penalty right then everything else just fixes itself. It doesn't have a split outcome. But that's something for the future. It's something that everyone can learn from. I think NASCAR will learn from, and hopefully we'll be better for that. So we're not in this position. And so you got to understand from NASCAR's perspective as well. They probably had, I'm going to guess, 10 different stakeholders call them between Monday and Wednesday when that decision was made. It could be the OEMs. It could be one from Toyota, one from Ford, one from Chevy, one from RCR, one from Penske, one from Gibbs. Everyone with their side of why this should or should not be a penalty, right? They got everyone coming at them in multiple different directions and saying, man, this is big for us if you do this, and it's going to hurt us if you do that. But I hate that it's come to that where we almost give the stakeholders too much, what's the word I'm looking for here? Too much of a voice.
Too much stake?
Too much stake, yeah.
This, by the way, was one of Austin's arguments in his interview with Travis's old boss.
What's that?
With Marty and McGee.
Oh, Marty McGee?
Yep.
He
didn't. He had mentioned that the stakeholders played a significant role in this decision, and that back in the day, it was NASCAR made the call, and that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. It's become more political than it's ever become. I mean, it's for good, bad, worse. I don't know, but it has. Whenever these decisions get made, it's whenever they see an infraction, they trust me. They get tons of people in their ear saying, "Please don't do this. It'll hurt that." And then you got the other side saying, "Oh, you got to do what's right." And so you have to almost, if I were the league, if I were NASCAR, I would say to whoever is on the good end or the bad end, like, we're going to make what we deem is the right choice. This is a sport, and you never can go wrong by making the right decision. And when a player comes in and, so much contact happens in other sports. It could be a pass interference. It could be a foul to the bucket right at the end of the game. the officials don't want to blow the whistle, but they have to do what's fair in the name of sport. And, if you didn't want the penalty and it's going to be big to you, you shouldn't have done it, right? And so I think that you can never go wrong just making the right call, what you think is the right call. And whoever's on the good end or the bad end has to just deal with whatever that call is. While I disagreed with, their call on me, at the end of it, it was like, okay, well, that's what it is. We made a case. They said no, and that's it, right? But, for the fans out there, they just have no idea how much this took 3 days, more than likely, because they were just being talked at from every angle of like, please don't, please do, please don't, please do. Like, and they're trying to figure out how can we strike a happy medium here. So they said, all right, we'll give you half of it, but not the other half, right? That's more than likely, in my opinion, of why they came to this split decision.
Did NASCAR call you to get your opinion
No.
since you're involved?
No, they did not.
They involuntarily got it, though.
Yeah. I mean, if any other driver thinks that, NASCAR, is swayed by what I say on this, I think in some instances they do. And in other instances, you can go get your own podcast and maybe you can get something go your way.
Or you can come join this one.
I mean, I'm the one that puts the work in. So we spend a lot of time down here, giving our fans a lot of content and things that they can bitch and complain about, things that I say or Jared. Everyone loves Jared, so that doesn't really apply. But I just think that I'm always going to give my opinion. And sure, I am biased because I'm the one that took a 32G hit. My body didn't like it. You can't convince me otherwise from what I saw in the data that it was not intentional. The contact with me was intentional. I've been doing this for too long. I've seen wrecks happen from so many different angles that I came to the conclusion that I did. And I tried to give the benefit of the doubt right out of the race car before I saw anything. I felt like I was like, yeah, I guess maybe it was off out of bounds, but like I didn't know. I needed more information. I never went at Austin personally. I didn't think that was kind of the right angle. But I felt like certainly we were wronged in the situation, and it was an unprecedented act, and it caused for unprecedented penalties, and it came with a split penalty. The only thing I worry about for Austin's sake is that I guess they do have the authority to say, all right, well then you don't want split penalty. We'll just take everything away. And then you've really lost some momentum, because
You think that could happen in this appeal?
I think that's where I went wrong in my appeal. I don't know if there's confidentiality. Who gives a It really doesn't matter. It's so old. But I had, a judge or one of the panelists asked me, it's like, what outcome would satisfy you? Is it all or nothing? Or can we separate this? And I was so gung-ho that my case was correct. It was prepared. We did everything right, that I said all or nothing. And I think I messed up there. I think that they were thinking about taking away the point penalty and just giving me the fine, but I wanted to go all in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's me, right? And to a fault at times. I feel like I need to just kind of take what it'll give me, aka stage one of the race. And I just think that I made a choice there when they asked me that they said, okay, it's all in guilty then.
But they wouldn't take. They've given him the win though, so I don't see how they would. This is a little different. It's not like they've taken the win and everything away, and he could only maybe fight for half of it.
Right. They're going in there trying to get their playoff eligibility back.
So they're not going to take the win.
They've made penalties worse. Absolutely.
So you think that there's a chance they'd come out and say Denny Hamlin's the winner of Richmond?
Oh, I think it's a less than 5% chance.
Okay.
I think it's just going to stay the way it is. I heard on the teardown today when they were like, I guess they asked Jordan and Gluck, their one said it was like 5% or something like that, and the other said it was like 33. I think it's like 10% that it changes. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's 20. But for them to just take all the penalty away, I just think that NASCAR they have protected themselves with the language that allows them to do essentially whatever they want.
So it doesn't matter that let's pretend there's panelists who are listening to this case this week or whenever it's heard that are looking at this, with a racing view from 20 years ago. I have like these rose-colored glasses, which we see all over X. Like you're saying that doesn't matter because the language that NASCAR has is so good that it'll dispute any opinions.
Every year and even during the year, NASCAR constantly updates its rule books, and so again, I think they were so displeased with the Hendrick outcome that they changed. They really made an effort in the offseason to hem up any of the you can't make up your own. Hey, panelists, you can't make up your own penalty. Either has to be what we said it is or not. And so I think that they have just enough language to govern the sport how they see fit. The old actions detrimental in the rule book, I mean, you might need, maybe Austin Dillon should go in and say, all right, well, what is detrimental? Let's look at the, that's not the right way to go upon a NASCAR panel, but you could say, what's detrimental? Look at all the engagement that this got.
Right.
This isn't detrimental. NASCAR, I'm playing both sides here. NASCAR would say it's detrimental to sport. The game we play, we have to govern the sport to make sure it's played properly. And that's on us, and we've chosen to throw a flag on this one.
So with this ruling, Elton Sawyer was asked about drivers and what they can do, and he said they know where the line is. Do you feel confident in knowing what you can and can't do racing for a win going forward?
Do I completely know? No, but generally speaking, yes. I believe that. I didn't hear a lot of drivers' comments through this weekend when they got interviewed that they were just totally confused on, well, what's good, what's not. There was a few. But generally speaking, what we know now is that if you choose to go and wipe out the leader on the final lap or on the green, white, checkered, and it looks real bad. Now, when I say wipe out the leader, there's many ways a car can be spun. If that driver has no opportunity to save it, that is wiping someone out. Spinning someone, my personal definition, is that you got into the back of them, they got up the track, they tried to save it, and then they spun. Like Joey's, when they spin around really quick, the driver had no chance, right? And I even brought up in my media session this weekend that I think that the 2017, if they are going to govern taking out the leader, that in my mind would have fallen under taking out the leader. I think that Chase Elliott didn't have a chance when he entered turn 3 when I was on his back bumper, right? There's been many others where guys were battling, they made contact, one hit the wall a little bit. It's just different. When you're side by side and the contact is so minute, that's racing. It's the wiping out and the car never even has the other person never has a chance. That's where I think you could essentially say, and I've looked back and there's, of course, this week has been filled with examples of, well, look at this, look at that. I remember seeing one where I think it was Stuart Friesen at Martinsville. He kind of right hooked one of the drivers. It might have been Todd Gilliland, at Martinsville, and I'm like, okay, boom, that should have been a penalty. It wasn't, but NASCAR needs to set a new precedence now and say, and trust me, it's not going to keep us from making contact. We are still willing to take the risk of going in there and moving the guy up if that's the absolute only way to make it work on the last lap. No, we want to work them over and just pass them for real. But I think they're going to have an opportunity in the next few weeks to see, are they going to be consistent? And I don't think that it needs to happen on Wednesday. I think that they need to let the men in the tower, whoever it might be, if it's Elton, let it be Elton. He's a driver. He can see right when he sees it and wrong when he sees that. Let them make the call for rough driving, tail end, and then we move on. And and whoever's on the good end or bad end has to live with the result because he's the official and he made the call. And sometimes up there it's a few people. Some weeks there's other NASCAR executives in the tower, and some weeks there's less people. But they just, even if it takes 10 minutes to just kind of look it all over, like just make the right call. And I think that there'll be an opportunity when we go to Martinsville and we get to these other lower series. It's been the last few years just an absolutely train wreck of racing. And we certainly, I personally would like to see it cleaned up a little bit. And I think there's an opportunity for NASCAR here to start to draw a new line.
You don't think it'll make drivers too timid?
I don't think so. I mean, if it did, then why did 3 drivers in the Cars Tour race all get put to the back spinning? Like everyone's willing to go for it. It's just you're willing to go for it. And so, there's just a difference. There is a difference. And I think in the Cars Tour, I think they're a little bit more strict on if the car spins out, it doesn't matter how egregious it was, they put you to the back. That might be wrong, but from what I've seen, it's pretty much a straight line, and that is you cannot be responsible for that leader spinning out. So, I think, listen, I think moments like this in our sport, there's always opportunities to grow from it and get better. And hopefully both sides get better. The competitors, we all get better and kind of how we handle the end of the races. And then, certainly NASCAR. And one other example, I think that probably warranted a penalty. He might not like this, but like when Kevin Harvick spun out Kyle Busch. Now, it didn't result in him making it, but he was trying to wreck Kyle to make the next round. And that would have knocked me out. It would have knocked me out. Now, is that fair, right? That's not fair. He shouldn't be able to wipe someone out to move on to the next round. And we're going to have these instances. We are going to have in the next few weeks, it could be a Darlington, right? When it comes down to the playoff bubble, we could have someone on a restart say, I got to have it. And if they do something that looks egregious, they should not be able to get into the playoffs on that move, just like Austin Dillon did.
Yep, I forgot about this Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch move, but
yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it was bad. He hooked him off the final corner. He just turned right on him. But listen, it's not something that Kevin was proud of by any means. He even said after the race, he's like, "Hate we were even in that position," But I think let's clean it up. Let's keep. I'm all about entertainment, but we need to keep sport in this.
Well, it was clean today because you had almost the same situation. You had Tyler Reddick, who got out to a 2.5 second lead or whatever it was at the end of this race, and then a late caution, and restarted him, and they kept it clean at the front.
Yeah. When we were kind of going green there in that final stage, I was thinking, all right, I'm in the top 10. No way I thought this was possible about an hour ago. Let's just get out of here. And then I heard there was smoke coming to pit lane, maybe an engine issue, no caution. I'm like, okay, good. They're gonna let us get to the finish line here. They're not, unless it's a legit caution, they're gonna let this thing, play out. And then, Martin goes up there and kind of scrapes the wall, and then we got a caution.
That was a quick one.
That was a quick one. Yeah. I couldn't figure out. I saw where Austin Cindric got into the wall early in the race. Was there no caution for that?
I don't believe so.
I mean, you would say his hit was definitely harder than Martin Truex's, right? I mean, I don't know because I didn't find the clip from. I saw Cindric's, but that wasn't a caution, right? It was not a caution.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I can kind of, I'm looking at all the cautions. You got the Truex, the Corey flipped, mine, Larson's, Chastain's, and that was it. So this is where I got to have our fans back a little bit. It's like, this is kind of the inconsistency you're wondering about. It's like, man, why do you have your finger so close to that caution trigger at the end of the race, but not when Austin Cindric pounded the fence in 3 and 4? They have a point. And so I think now more than ever, because of social media and, you've always got, people having an opinion of what they're seeing. And of course there's always evidence that, I'm sure they're going to bring up when Ricky barely scraped the wall at Texas. That's when Ryan Blaney put his winning net down because he thought the race was over. Like, that was a quick on the trigger. Like, why are we so quick on that trigger at the end of the race?
Well, because the late race caution adds excitement to the race.
But that's not fair in the world of sports.
I'm just telling you why.
I just think that, listen, he hit the wall. There's no question about that. I don't know what his speed went down to, but I don't think he went below 100 miles an hour. Like, he kept going at a decent rate of speed. Did it warrant a caution? No. Has it been a caution in other circumstances? Yes. So this was just one of those 50-50 calls, and they chose to do it. My only question is, it seems like they are starting getting quick on that trigger finger again. I just don't think we need that, right? Because the best car, the best driver on that, they deserve to win. And putting them in a spot where they're about to lose, and they almost did. They almost gave this thing to Byron. They didn't give it to him. He earned it when he got the lead. But it was, man, these things just really change the outcome of races. And we just spend so much money, and drivers spend so much time on their craft to just have it all wiped out in green, white, checkered finishes.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly altered Ross Chastain's race, right? Because he was going to cruise to a top 10 finish or right outside the top 10, and then green, white, checkered, he ends up in the fence or riding through the infield in the backstretch, and now he's at the cut line again.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was at the end of Nashville, right? We had Austin Cindric spun down to the infield, did a 360, kept on going. We had a caution there, and look what it did. It wiped out everybody that was at the front of the pack, and everyone that was 15th on finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, it completely flipped the results upside down. So it's just there's a lot of things at stake when you decide, and it's up to them to decide now. It's up to us to critique it and talk about it here on the next day, and give our opinion on it, but we don't always have to agree with it. It's just there's a lot that can happen positively or negatively when you have those late race cautions.
Let's rewind a little bit here. This race started in the late afternoon. Should start times be moved up to avoid rain? Or
Yes. I think Jeff Gluck made a fantastic argument and a very calculated one on why yesterday should have been moved up, and certainly it would have allowed us to give the fans that came there on Sunday a race to watch, an official race. The advantage that it would have gave, right, is it would have gave us more time on the front end. So let's pretend that race, you had 1 hour more of racing on the front end, which you would have because we didn't go caution until like right when we fired our engine. So 1 hour start time up. If we go green, you're looking at 50 laps there. So stage 1 happens before that first sprinkle happens. Then after the sprinkle happens, we run, we get another 50 laps in. Now we're at halfway. So what happens then is when we get that shower at 5:30, we think we can be done. We can have this thing dried by 6:30. The end of the race is at 8:20. Yeah, we can get the entirety of the race in. But if we have one more drop, it's over. We've got an official race, but if the rain can stop by a certain time, we're going to give you the entire race. And I believe, I can't be exact, but I'm pretty sure that big shower that we had that canceled us was the last shower for quite some time. And so we would have been able to actually get the entire race in because there would have only been 100 laps to go, not 150.
To Jeff's argument, is it a matter of moving the start time up when you see that rain is in the forecast, or is it just across the board, let's start these races earlier in general?
I mean, there's an argument to be had both ways. I believe, now again, I don't have all the information that NASCAR has, right? But man, we have chased ratings for so long. You know, we're willing to be on different networks, and we're going to streaming, and our start times are all over the place, just chasing it. And is that the best thing for the sport versus having, it's Sunday, 1:00. That's what you had a race to watch, right? I think when it's on a big network, I kind of understand the later you're wanting to be later, because then it leads into something that people were supposed to were coming to tune into. And that was the whole point, right? With the later start time is there's more houses that tune in later in the evening on Sunday. Sunday, during the day, people go and they do stuff. And, by the time they're done doing their stuff, they want to come home because they've got work tomorrow. So they come home at a reasonable hour and get their stuff done, and then they turn on the TV.
Right, but like you just said, NASCAR their goal should be that their race is more important than the stuff, right? Like,
yes.
Let's not be second to people's stuff, right? If you're a big Panthers fan, you're going to watch the game at 1:00. You're going to move your stuff around the game. You can't
compare to the NFL because people will tune in at midnight. You put a game at midnight, and that thing will get 10 million views. It's just,
but that's the goal. Is that you want to be?
I agree.
The NFL.
You have to be at the big boys table, but
right.
Instead we're chasing around all these slots and things like that. And I would just argue that on USA, why are you starting it late? What are you trying to get people to? So I guess you're trying to get them more households to turn on the TV, but then you're trying to get whoever's tuning into the thing after yours, that if our race runs long and it turns into you actually get to watch the last 10 laps, maybe that person, while waiting on their show, sees the end of your race and they are like, wow, this is amazing. Man, that is such a damn stretch.
I would believe that
that is such a stretch.
If it's ESPN or Fox, but with all due respect to USA, it's either going to be NCIS reruns or SVU, and that's not going to hold me over.
That's my point. That is certainly on USA. I just don't know of a big audience ready to turn on USA as soon as the NASCAR race is scheduled to be over. So.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's pretend that the charter negotiation is going great and y'all put a bow on it and it's excellent, right? And NASCAR goes to the TV negotiations in the next TV window or whatever, and TV says, well, you can start all your races at 1:00, but we're going to give you less money. So as a team owner, would you be okay with that? Would you say, yeah, let's start all these races at 1:00 and I'll accept a little less money in favor of our fans, who may get to see more races in person?
This is where the interest of the teams and NASCAR does not align. NASCAR is wanting to get whatever dollar, every penny of media that they possibly can, because that's money that goes in their pockets. For us as teams, which is what we've been saying for years and years and years. We're so sponsorship based. So when you take us and you put us on all these other networks and all these other start times, fans, it gets confused. I hate to say it, it's confusing. There is many times I'm like, what do I need to record? Like where? Like, because I like to come back and watch, and I'm trying to figure out what time and where, right? And so this can't be easy for, you're going to have your avid fans that are going to they'll figure it out. But that number is just not as big as it needs to be. So I just feel like our interests aren't aligned, to answer your question. We wish every race was on Fox or NBC, the big network. That's what they do with IndyCar, right? They just said, all right, we're going to take way less money. Since the teams are dependent on sponsorship, this is going to be good for the teams. And it's going to be good and it'll be good for the sport because it'll grow our sport. We're going to be on a big network, and IndyCar is going to grow because more eyeballs are going to see us, and we're going to get more money on our next TV deal. Instead, we have taken the approach of like we've bounced around, and when FS1 started, NASCAR, we'll help you start that, or the NBC, when they had their NBC Sports, it's like, we'll help you start that. Like, yeah, well, those companies are willing to pay a lot of money for your rights because they don't have much of an audience. They don't have much, so they're just hoping your few million will come on over. And that will help. So I'm sure someone from NASCAR is going to be just like, no, don't say all this. Let's be real. And it's just a tough balance, because if you're NASCAR, you just want to get as much money as you can because you want to make a lot of money. And to do that, you're going to put your shit on all kinds of different networks and start it at prime TV slot, because that'll give you the most audience in the short term to try to get you a better TV deal. Others say, okay, we need to grow our sport. We're going to be more on air TV, take a little bit less money, that this will be good for the teams because they will be able to sell sponsorship quite a bit easier. And so I think that this is where, sometimes we want to go this way and they want to go that way. And you try to strike a balance the best you can. I'm not saying us going to streaming is a bad thing next year. I think that Amazon is going to be a great partner. Turner is going to be good for us, all that, because they've got such a reach with their Bleacher Report and whatnot. But it's more of the bigger thing of just getting us a more common starting time. That, I think that's a good thing. I think if it becomes more common, you get more races in on the day of the event, and I think that it just becomes a little easier for your fans to know when you're on TV.
Yeah. Well, you certainly don't want fans to stop showing up at the racetrack because they're concerned or nervous that they're not going to get to see much racing or a race at all.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, no doubt.
How much cost does a team incur when they have to stay an extra day?
Not sure. I'm not sure I want to know. Truthfully, I mean, it's more hotel rooms. There's other cost, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't dig into those numbers for sure. There's others I dig into, but that's not it.
Well, poor Denny Hamlin fans, the ones who came to see you race, only really saw you race for 80-something laps before you...
40.
80-something?
40.
They only did 51 on the first day. I was
hauling ass for a little while.
He was slipping and sliding.
I almost tweeted that, God, I hate me. You know how many likes that would have gotten?
A lot.
A lot, right?
A lot. A lot. Like this if you hate Denny Hamlin.
God, I hate me sometimes. Yeah, I just I got too greedy. I'm trying to do this whole regular season thing and damn points racing, and I'm trying to win the stage because that's at least 1 point that I can leave the weekend with. And me and Larson, we were putting on quite an exhibition there, and just let the 23 blow right by us down the straightaway. So people were wondering, like, where in the hell did that come from? It's just, we were playing games, trying to position ourselves to try to, get the surge into the corner. And we just slowed down too much and let the 23 go right by us. And then at that point, we still run side by side through 1 and 2 and then down the backstretch. And I think finally Kyle was like, okay, we're killing each other here. I'm going to back off and let's go try to make another run at this. And then I ran back to the 23. I thought he was struggling when he was out front with his balance. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get him real quick. And I just got too much, got too greedy. My car was so good to start the race. I'm like, man, I can go anywhere. I never usually go pretty high, pretty early in a race, kind of push the resin up. But my car was so good, so comfortable, and so fast. I felt comfortable anywhere I took it. And unfortunately, just demolished the bottom side of it. So you didn't see, as a race fan, you're looking around and like, there ain't no damage. Like it looks fine. All of a sudden you go from the fastest in the first stage to the slowest car on the racetrack. I wish I saw that coming too, but with pictures that Chris showed me overnight with our car, he was like, it's pretty bad. Well, it's pretty destroyed.
Where was that voice in your head that always preaches you have to see the checkered flag?
It was right in front of me. It was 5 laps away. It was just green and white,
right?
Not black and white.
You all would have finished the stage under green. Like no one would have pit, right? Had you not caused a caution?
Well, I should have looked at it in the sense of that, I had more time left to work over the 23. I had just gotten to him. I saw he was struggling to get off turn 4. And so I knew I was going to get a run on him. And I had enough laps left. I just got impatient there thinking, I'm going to get around him quicker, sooner than later. So it just is one of those weird aero spots where it's like you have all this grip and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Are you aware of that though?
I'm aware it can happen, but it's been a long time since one has just taken off like that one has. And a lot of it too is we have a new right side tire at Michigan that is harder yet than what we had before. And so when you break traction on it, it's gone. And you heard Larson talk about that in when he came out of the infield care center. He was like, these things, you have grip and then you don't. The tires are so hard. It's, you have all these G's pushing, and that's how we know as drivers, a little NASCAR 101, how we know like what the balance of our car is, right? Is we're sitting in a seat and we can feel our body loading towards the right side. And there's a certain amount of pressure that when I know that, I know kind of the banking of the track, what kind of load I should be feeling in the car to be pushing my car to the limit. And when I feel that pressure pushing down on my body, pushing me to the right, I can feel that, okay, that's about all the tires will hold. Because I've just done this for forever. And when you're constantly, okay, you keep getting that load in your body, every corner, it becomes like a
muscle memory?
Yes, muscle memory of like, we're good here. Yep, we're good there. And then all of a sudden, all it takes is a car in front of you to change directions. And that load completely goes off of your car, off of your body, off of your car, and the thing will just spin out. And so the tires need to be loaded to actually have grip. And so the only way to load them is to have all the air pushing down on your car. When you have a car in front of you, there's not as much air pushing down on your car. So not only do you lose downforce, but you lose tire saturation, and the tire won't grip as good. It's almost a double negative. When you saw Josh Berry off by 1.5 or 2 seconds at the beginning of the race, his problem just compounded because the slower he kept going, the worse his car kept driving. But he was at a point where, and I experienced it when I went back out today, if I go any faster, I will wreck. So I have to slow down. And then as I slow down, it just kept making my problems worse. So it's just a very, very interesting thing that we fight, that people in the stands or the people watching on TV, you'll never see it. You never understand kind of why that car is making the turn the way it is. So it it's just a unique thing that sometimes happens. And certainly what I saw is that not only did I have the 23 in front of me, but as he comes up and then gets close to the wall, it causes a pinch off point for the air, and then my car has no air. At least if he stays off of the wall a little bit, what happens is that the air will then go off of his front end, down the right side, and go between the wall and his right side of his car. When he goes all the way up against it, it shuts it off. It shuts all the air off, and now I'm in no man's land.
Right. But aren't you in that spot and recognizing like, okay, 23 is out front. That's a good thing. That's a car I own. Those are 10 stage points that Bubba desperately needs. And you
I'm a selfish son of yeah, no doubt. I myself. So I get it. I wish I could do it all over again. Trust me.
Was this worse knowing that like the race suspended and you have to sleep on this and go back out today rather than the race being over and you can move on?
Yes, that part was definitely worse, knowing that I probably took certainly the best car I've started a Michigan race at and just destroyed the bottom side of it, where I know it is so sensitive and you just cannot mess up the underside. So yes, it was painful, but I thought I had a little bit of a sample size right before the rain came, and I ran on a restart, and it felt fine. So I thought that my car at 95% still gonna contend. And unfortunately, it was probably 90%, but they did an amazing job at the end of the race, like adjusting for, well, that's as good as we can get it. Let's just fix your balance at this point. And so thank God, because we need the whole race to get back in somewhat of contention.
Is the greediness that you had there, is that just because of where we're at in the season? When we get into the playoffs, is that going to change? You'll be like, okay, I'll just take these 9 stage points.
You're getting closer to the playoffs, so I'm looking at the playoff grid, thinking, I need more points. So I'm trying to leave the weekend with something, and if I see there's 1 point that I can take through the playoffs, 1 car length in front of me, I'm just gonna push to try to get it done.
But if we get into the playoffs and you're in that similar situation, you will just take what you got.
I didn't think I was really pushing it until I got in that situation. So it likely can and will happen again. But generally speaking, it depends. Tell me where I'm at in points. I'll tell you how aggressive I'm going to get it. So yeah, it's fluid.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the best race car driver in the world also spun out in very similar fashion.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I saw where this episode has turned out to be longer than I really was hoping it would. I thought that this is going to be a little 50 minutes. We talked about a lot of stuff, but I mean, there is some newsworthy stuff, but at least Max Verstappen, like I saw where he got interviewed by someone who's like, what do you think about these comments? Or, he's like, why are we even comparing? It's 2 different things. He's like, I grew up doing karting and F1. And so that's my specialty. I've never run dirt. But if maybe I practice dirt, I feel like I'd be good at it. So I don't think that it is a fair comparison when people, I guess Kyle probably brought it on himself by saying he was better. Man, those F1 guys are good. So I just would temper those expectations. I mean, why don't we just say that Kyle's better on ovals and Max is better on road courses? Can we just leave that as a blanket statement?
Can we put Max in a 2311 car at some point?
We can do whatever you want to do. Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have to change energy drinks, though, to the better one. I think Lewis would be the one that would give a NASCAR start a try if there were ever one. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo perhaps would. But, yeah, I just think that it's such a tough argument to have, and you're going to be good at whatever you practiced and grew up doing. So, yes, Kyle Larson definitely will beat Max Verstappen in a dirt sprint car race because that's what Kyle Larson's been doing for forever. That's a silly argument. I guess it's just not you just can't compare the two.
It's sillier than like some of these regular sports debates that we have every day because
when they're trying to compare generational guys, right? And it's like, well, at least they played the same sport.
Michael versus LeBron, at least it's like comparable.
They played the same sport, right? And yes, rules change, but like you can compare stats because it's the same sport. They're not running the same thing we're running. And the F1 guys are elite. So I wouldn't try to throw shade on any of them, because more than likely with any kind of reps, especially on a road course, even if it's in a stock car, they're probably going to be pretty damn good.
On the spin, though, was Kyle feeling the same thing that you felt when he went around?
I looked at how he spun, and it was not the same, but similar. He had gotten to the right side wake of I don't know who he was trying to pass. He was trying to get up, first of all. He was trying to get to the top lane. He was clear, so he's like, I got to get up before we get to the straightaway, and this train gets going on the outside. And so when he tried to let his car go up the racetrack a little bit to get in the top line, he crossed over one of the cars that he was following's wake, and he was probably already loose a little bit. And all of our cars are a little loose the very first lap on a restart. They just don't have the load in them. They're not down as like they are when we're running green flag racing. So they're always a little bit sketchy in the first lap anyway. And then it looked like he just crossed over to the right side of whoever he was following and just got in a bad spot there and spun it out.
Do other drivers see these incidents happen, like yours with his, and then do they race differently for the remainder of the race? Like, oh, okay, well, that happened to that guy. That could happen to me if I put myself in a similar situation.
Yes, and the turns 3 and 4 was sketchy today. Sketchy, because the wind was coming from northwest, which is kind of pushing your car loose on that side of the track anyway. But it was a lot gustier, a lot more sustained winds today, which is why we saw turns 3 and 4 be so sketchy.
Which way was that wind pushing you? Was it coming at you, headwind or tailwind, or?
Well, it's kind of a transition point. So when you go into turn 3, you've got a headwind. As you start making the corner, it just constantly frees you up. It just pushes. It swings the back. It pushes the front down, and the back end swings out because of your changing directions, then going with the wind.
So it's coming from the infield, or it's coming from outside the track?
No, it was coming from turn. Say there's a middle point of turns 3 and 4. It's like the 50% mark of between that. It was coming from that way.
Got it.
So it changes it and certainly changed the characteristics of the car.
You were talking to Jeff Gluck after the race. Did you mention that that wind also affected LaJoie's flip and why his car?
It could have. Because what happens is when the car turns sideways, right? So he turned sideways, and immediately as his car goes sideways, he's got 30 extra miles per hour. Say there's a gust or a sustained wind, it makes his car believe that he's going 30 miles per hour faster than it's actually going. Because when he turns sideways and now the broadside is going up against a 30 mile an hour headwind, he's already got a certain amount of wind that it's coming, even if it was still, because of the speed. Add in 30 miles an hour of wind hitting the side of his car, probably just pushed it right over.
Should these cars flip over like that? Is that
Yes.
a concern?
It's not a concern on my end.
You said you'd rather flip over it
Than hit a wall. Yep. I guess statistically speaking, now there's always anomalies, right? There's always instances where cars go airborne, and we had that incident at Talladega with Brad Keselowski, Ryan Newman. You've had cars get up and catch fences, and there's been some collateral damage from that. But generally speaking, I feel like from a driver safety perspective, we haven't had a whole lot of flips equal bad injuries. We've had contact with wall equal bad injuries, but not.
Well, that's just because wall is more common, right? You have a bigger sample size of you hitting a wall than a car flipping.
Yeah, but one just looks more violent than another. When you flip over and the thing starts tumbling, right? People were thinking, "Oh my gosh, look at all the hard hits he's taken." It's not really. It's more just like I would think probably like a spin cycle, right? it's not any really hard hit. It's just a bunch of real small ones. It's just when you hit in these cars, especially flat-sided or nosing in, that's that one big spike, and that's what really can cause injuries.
I mean, your hit last week on TV, it didn't look bad, but
it was
the
bad.
numbers.
It was bad.
So what's the pain that you felt instantly and then last
It's
week?
just my whole right side. I felt like I got crushed into the right side of the seat. So everything on the right side of me, my leg, my back, my shoulder, just was all just felt like it got hit hard. So it's just that's when you look on TV, some impacts are not all equal. Some that look bad that aren't, and some that aren't that actually are. So it's just weird. I just think that cars flipping overs happen for forever, and it's gonna continue to happen. And slowing us down is not the answer. You're just gonna make us run closer together, and then cause more contact and cause more cars to flip. So I just think that it's just a product of it. I didn't really see anything wrong, and it was a unique situation where he turned sideways at 185 miles per hour against probably a headwind that helped this thing flip over.
But what about when the car catches the grass then and then starts tumbling? That's still not a
they've
concern?
tried to get rid of the grass. They did at Daytona. Talladega has went to all asphalt kind of on their backstretch. NASCAR has definitely recognized that grass causes the car to catch and flip. So they're working on updating their tracks to try to get more asphalt.
You also had a pretty good view of this. It's just a racing incident.
I guess. Corey was bobbing and weaving. I hadn't you always get consumed in your own race, week in, week out. And I don't, where Corey's been for the most part of the year, I haven't kind of seen anything, but I definitely, when my car was off, I got to run around him quite a bit, and he's definitely zigs and zags a lot. And so, I think he's just trying to make something happen, but yeah, he had such a run on the 10. I didn't think he needed to side draft that close, but it doesn't take much, just a little bit of contact or to his right front right there, and it sent him.
Let's talk about Tyler Reddick for a minute, because there's a few guys that have been on a run like he has the last, since Darlington of last year?
Yeah, on a run.
What do you make of that?
I love it. I mean, I love it and I hate it.
I was going to say, you're a competitor.
About that much of me hates it. About that much of me loves it, because this is why I hired Tyler Reddick. I knew what he was capable of if he just put it together. And he's a great student of the game. He asks a ton of questions. And while my crew chief doesn't love that I always give him what my true answer is, but it's part of being teammates and it's part of being a leader and a team owner. I want to see 2311 succeed well beyond my driving days, but there will be a few years where I'm going to have to go up against myself in some instances. And as they continue to get better and better and better, they're proving to be viable contenders. And they're doing a fantastic job. Everyone that's at airspeed, in the competition, and everyone is just killing it right now. Everyone's doing a great job. And short of Bubba having his incident today, they were on their way to running top three, 2 cars in the top 3 all day like they have over the last few weeks. They're all doing a great job.
I mean, it doesn't, there's not a part of you, because this is really the first year that it's been like this, where 2011's been as competitive as they are. But you're trying to run for a championship, and this guy is very much in the way. And you have a role in how good he is every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I do. But it's my job. I mean, if let's say I didn't own 2311, if 2311 was owned straight by Michael Jordan, they would still be in our JGR competition meetings. Tyler Reddick would still be coming to me asking questions on what on advice on certain things. And I would give him my honest answer, just like I would to any of my teammates. Ty Gibbs, same thing, asks me a lot of questions, and I try my best to help him as well. I mean, I feel like that's part of the role of being a veteran in the sport and it's part of being a good teammate is to, give an open book. And sometimes that open book bites you right in the ass. It bit us in the ass at Martinsville last year, 2 years ago. The 20 was out to lunch during the test. They were terrible. We were by far the best. They got me to go in there, drive their car. This is before the playoff race. And I was like, Adam, this thing is not good. You're going to have to change all this. It's just not good. What I have drives good. He put it in our setup. They won. Knocked me out of the Final Four. So it sucks, but, what can you do? I need to be... I'm biased to the 11. Always will be biased to the 11 in my team. But I need to do the right thing as a teammate too when I'm asked upon.
So there's not a part of you that goes, son, I shouldn't have given the 20.
Of course. But I consider it an obligation.
How does a guy like Tyler Reddick stay on this run for 12 more weeks? Like, we know that NASCAR very much, ebbs and flows. How does he stay on this path and keep it hot through the crucial part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Tyler a little bit during his when I was at his wedding. He was like, "Man, I just feel like we're so fortunate right now." And I'm like, and at the time, I was on the other side. Like, I was like, we are so unfortunate right now. We're not finishing nearly where we should, and he's finishing better than where he should. And there's statistics that supported that, like, he is out kicking his coverage. Well, what that means is they're executing well, whether it be on pit lane or Billy with the strategy or the entire team with the strategy. Like, they're doing a good job of managing races and picking up the pieces when other people make mistakes. And that will win you a championship. No doubt about it. Now, it will get you to the Final Four. Winning a championship, you got to run good in that one race, right? And sometimes that means just not messing up. Jimmy Johnson won his 7th title, worst car of the Final Four by a mile, but everyone else just took each other out. And so then he won his 7th championship. So there is an element of that where you just need to be good in executing. And it's been, as the cars become more and more similar, and everything becomes the same, it becomes a race of execution, and they've just done a great job, and they've had some good fortune, yes, but they've had speed that has kept them out of the mess. And so they've stayed up front, and yes, they've had a few cautions go their way, but it's just been a clinic by them in their execution. And so this was and I said it in the media center today, it's where I thought Tyler was the weakest when I hired him, is that I thought his race management was not as good as it needed to be. But I thought, well, surely we can work with him a little bit and teach him these things. It just helps the learning curve so much when you kind of get coached into this stuff. And then he has aha moments, and he's like, okay, so I can win the race sometimes without being the fastest car. I win it this way instead of that way. So he's putting it all together now, and it's showing like how many wins, although it's just 2 this year, probably could have been much, much more. We know.
I mean, he's had 3 runner-ups, and
yeah, it's just, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere for a while. And so I think that you might as well get used to it, because he's going to just keep getting better as a driver. And I think the team's going to just keep getting better. I think the cars are really, really fast. Really, really fast. And then it's just about executing, doing your job, and you're going to see the results that they're getting.
And now he's first in points.
Yeah. How do you beat him for the regular season championship?
I'm probably going to need some help, truthfully, which will be difficult because more than likely we'll run in a pack of Toyotas, right? And so
if he goes out, you go out, more than likely.
Yeah, or the gain would be a couple of points, So I don't know. I think I need to have an exceptional. I think I need to have a pretty good Daytona and exceptional Darlington. But even if I'm exceptional at Darlington and say I win the race, if nothing happens and there's no, if let's say that my competitors execute as well as we execute on that day, it's going to be 1 through 4. The best 4 or 5 cars have been the best 4 or 5 cars all year long. So I just don't think we're going to make up chunks and chunks and chunks of points, but that's why they play the game. We were looking at probably being 50 points behind somewhere in that second stage when Larson's leading. He's putting me a lap down. We're done. One restart flipped this whole thing around, and now I'm ahead of him in points. So it's just that's racing. That's why he run the game.
Yeah, it's got to be tough for you to look at this, considering that if you're going to make up a good chunk of points on Reddick in the next week, it's also probably going to cost you a lot of money.
Remember that selfish son of a thing I was talking about? I'd rather have the paycheck going to my bank account directly versus mine and Michael's.
Michael's got enough. He can deal for one race where he doesn't get as much.
Let's talk about the bubble drivers here, because Bubba obviously had a very competitive car today until he got caught up in Larson's wreck, and now he's 1 point out behind Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher. Travis is plus 17 at the moment?
Yeah, he's one that certainly, again, the late race cautions changed things. He went from not being in a great spot, made up some spots on the restart, put himself in a better spot. Ross went the other way, right? He had a wreck, and then it put him a lap down, and that was it for him. So I think he finished right next to Bubba, so way back there. So it's going to come down to the wire, and I think it's just we're all going to have, let's just say let's just pretend everyone's got the same speed at Daytona. It's going to be about who doesn't get caught in a wreck. What team has the best strategy? They're going to get the most stage points, things like that. So it's going to come down to the wire. I really think it is. All the cars run good at Darlington. Who is battling for the race win in the spring? Tyler Reddick and Chris Buescher. So, 2311 car is going to be battling for a race win. More than likely, he's I think finished in the top 10 or ran in the top 10 every Darlington race that I can remember. So he's going to be a contender. Chris Buescher is going to be good. We know Ross was challenging for the race win at Darlington a few years ago. So I don't know. It's going to be close. It'll come down to it.
But Daytona being the second to last regular season race this year is interesting because, typically, this is it, right? This is the finale. Whatever happens in this decides the playoffs. Whereas now there's one race after this, so you don't want to necessarily put yourself. I feel like you don't want to race Daytona and put yourself out of contention that you have to win Darlington, right? So, if you're Bubba, are you racing for points at Daytona, or are you just?
I think everyone's going to race to be at the front and whatever it takes at the end of stages, at the end of the race. You just can't lay back on super speedways like you used to be able to, because you used to be able to pass quite a bit easier than what you can now. Now it's just it's a 2x2 line, and that's it. And so I think it's everyone's going to be battling for the same thing. The thing is we're probably going to get grouped, right, by our manufacturers. So which one comes out a pit lane on a pit cycle at the end of a stage.
Well, that makes this interesting because the bubble is Ford versus Chevy versus Toyota.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So three different drivers. Anything else you wanna add to this?
I don't think so. I thought it was a decent weekend considering kind of what I did to set us back there, and we've got 2 races to go out there and get some more playoff points before we call this a regular season.
I hate how the regular season's coming to an end, and once again, the lack of attention towards how valuable the regular season championship. It's every year I feel like it's not talked about. Yeah,
because usually the bubble just kind of takes over the headlines because it's the regular season championship battle. We know we've got 10 races to cover them. We're about to stop talking about two of the three of these guys, right? So, or one of the three. So, it's a little more of the storyline because it's, we're not going to talk about this guy once he's eliminated. So you got it. We saw it with Netflix. They're going to put the emphasis on the cut. Then once we get in the playoffs, we're going to talk about favorites for the championship.
Who do you think gets into these playoffs? Who do you think the last three guys at the bottom are? Do we get a new winner at Daytona?
I don't know. There's some really good super speedway drivers that could win. I don't know. It's very possible. Is it likely? No. But is it possible? Yes. I'm going to put it at 30% chance that we have a new winner. 30%. So that's 70 that says no. So, but there's still enough between. Gibbs put himself in a better spot, but between Buescher, Chastain, and Bubba, even if there's a new winner, you're still going to take one of these guys to the playoffs.
That's why the Austin Dillon was even more
Unless Austin Dillon comes in. Then this thing moves up, and if we get a new winner, those guys are screwed. All of them.
Do we know if that case will be heard this week?
Wednesday, I heard.
Wednesday, right? You have to have a hearing before you go into Daytona.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that this race was postponed to Monday.
Yeah, I think it's good. We'll get that out of the way. All right. Well, tune in post Daytona. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Before we close out, I got a review from Buttermilky.
Well, I had one person say, I was walking back, it was raining. He was like, "Hey, I left you a review." Yeah, he said his name, but I couldn't quite remember.
Was it Buttermilky?
What did he say? What did Buttermilk? Buttermilky?
Drove 8 hours to watch you race in Richmond, my first race. Enjoyed every lap. I find that hard to believe. We'll be back. Let's effing go. I doubt he enjoyed the last
enjoyed 399 and 3/4 laps and hated the last quarter. But appreciate the review. You guys keep giving us a 5-star review if you wouldn't mind. And
go hit that subscribe button on YouTube.
Subscribe. Too. We're doing a great job. We're growing. Sounds like we're getting more and more listeners as this thing is going on. So it's great. Great y'all are tuning in, and we'll see you next week.